Hi everyone, my name is Emily Bablitch. I am an experienced consultant at West Monroe Partners here in the Chicago office. I started in August, so virtual just like everyone else. And I graduated from the Harris School of Public Policy with an MPP in June. So excited to be here.
Great. So you're new to this role, but that's fine. We'll still chat about all this kind of stuff. But we're first going to talk about your role at West Monroe Partners and a little bit about what West Monroe Partners is. So can you talk to a little bit about what your typical day looks like, what your main responsibilities are, and if you want to give a quick overview of what West Monroe Partners is.
Sure, great. Yeah, I can start with a quick overview of West Monroe Partners. It's a consulting firm that has offices in Chicago, LA, San Francisco, let's see if I can get them all, Seattle, Dallas, New York, and DC. I think I got all of them. But we have a few focal areas, so energy and utilities, which I'm a part of. We have tech, health, life sciences, and financial services. And then across those kind of what we call industry areas, we also have what would be referred to as services. So our customer experience team, mergers and acquisitions, operations excellence tech, and then there's a few more as well. So smaller consulting firm, not as large as Deloitte or Accenture, but I think that makes it great because we do have an outstanding culture at West Monroe. More about the energy and utilities practice. So we are one of the larger practices within the firm. We are at the LA, Dallas, Chicago, and New York office. And we really focus on telecom as one of our major industries that we help support within the utility sphere. And that's a project that I am on. But we also do have projects that focus on decarbonization efforts like DERs, as well as EVs, bringing those to utilities and their customers. And we also have a water area as well. And we're starting to focus on how we can help utilities with low-income customers, which is something that I'm pretty interested in. So, you know, it seems utilities kind of seems daunting, but there is cool stuff related to energy policy going on. So more about my role. So I didn't start in this role right away when I was started in August. I was what we refer to as on the bench, which just means you aren't staffed on a client project. So I actually got to help out on a really cool internal initiative that's gaining a lot of momentum right now, especially with the Biden presidency and all the EV announcements. I helped on what's called the electric vehicle fleet total cost of ownership tool. And it's this robust Excel model that helps to calculate what the total cost of ownership would be for a utility or a utility customer, for example, the Department of Health here in Chicago, what it would be like to change their internal combustion engine fleet, so diesel or gas to electric vehicles. So it's really interesting, and it was really cool to be a part of and kind of see it from like conception to actual being published on the web. So that was great. And then I also helped publish a paper on what utilities are doing for their low income customers right now during the COVID pandemic. So those were two projects that I really enjoyed being a part of. West Monroe really encourages professional development. So if you're not staffed on a project that's like of most interest to you, there's definitely opportunities within the firm to kind of hone in your skills and expertise in areas of interest. So the project I'm currently on is all telecom, and it's really in the weeds on telecom, which has been a great challenge, right? Like I came from a policy degree focusing on energy and environment, no telecom, no utility experience, but it's been really great to see kind of the major key account program that we have. So our major clients are called our key accounts, and be a part on that. I think that's really exciting. And so what this project does, and I'll try to be as non-techie with this as I can, is we help a utility and their rollout of mesh communications. And so I help to oversee a utility in New Jersey deploy and support types of infrastructure that basically helps keep the power on. That's like as high level as I can get without getting too in the weeds, but it's been really interesting to kind of learn more about utilities and what that entails. Marguerite, do you want to me to talk about like the day-to-day, what that looks like?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, and my next question that I was going to go to anyway was like, how's your team set up and, stuff like that.
Okay, great, perfect. So I am on a 3-person team, I would say. So we have our project manager, who kind of helps coordinate the overall project. He is really the one that interfaces with our clients, and just make sure we're chugging along, meeting the budget. We have another person on our team who is in charge of another utility. We are going to be getting someone else join for our 3rd utility. So there are 3 like subsidiaries of part of this utility. So we each have one of those. And then we have what's called our engagement lead. So someone who is more in charge, just making sure we are meeting like main project goals and deadlines, kind of the larger picture where our project managers, the day-to-day operations. And that's not to say that we don't interface with clients. So back to the day-to-day, our team meets in the morning and in the evening, kind of as a bookend. And in between, it is chock full of meetings, which is it's great. It keeps the day moving. I meet with all of our various stakeholders. So a lot of electrical engineers. So that's been a fun challenge to kind of learn their lingo and learn all these acronyms. And so I meet with them. We do meet with our clients, to give them status updates on, we have 400 plus devices to oversee that they are installed by the business deadline. So we meet with them to give them updates. Yeah, and then there's also on the West Monroe side of things, like I mentioned before, I'm kind of involved in some of our internal initiatives. So meeting with the team behind the cool EV model. So we're hoping to present that to the energy and utilities practice as what we call a knowledge transfer session. They're basically just trainings on industry topics, which has been a great way to kind of learn more about what's going on outside of my project too. And so we'll be doing that in March. And then I'm a part of the low income team. And so we just kind of meet and talk about, okay, what are some ideas that we have to bring to business? And then there's also just fun meetings going on within the practice and within West Monroe as a whole. We have really great employee resource groups. And so one of them is the Women Leadership Network. So that meets about monthly too. So a lot of meetings, but that's okay. It keeps you busy and keeps you on your toes. And then outside of that, it's just responding to action items in meetings. We have a robust Excel tracker to make sure we're hitting all of our deadlines and helping the engineers problem solve their issues and get them and connected with the right stakeholders.
Awesome. So you touched on this a little bit already, and it hasn't been a super long time that you've been there, but what have you found to be your favorite parts about working there? And then what have you found to be challenging? You already mentioned that working with some of those engineers was a little bit daunting, but anything else?
Sure, yeah. So I think the most challenging part about my current project is just having no experience in the telecom industry. Before coming to West Monroe, I was an environmental educator at a nonprofit, so just really no telecom experience. So that was a huge learning curve, but now that I've been on this for several months, it's like, okay, I know what that means. Like, this isn't as scary as it used to be. And so I think that's probably the biggest challenge. I think also is just the virtual setting, as I'm sure you all know from school. It is brain tiring being on screen all day. So I haven't met, any of my coworkers. So I think that's a little challenging too. But I think on the flip side of that is West Monroe is really well known for their culture. Some of their logos include like people first, and that's entirely true. It's just a really great culture to be a part of, and they are doing their best to keep it alive during the virtual times. Pre-pandemic, you were traveling Monday through Thursday, and Fridays was when everyone came back to the office, and it was kind of a no client day, no meeting day, just catching up with coworkers. And so they try to keep that alive by encouraging coffee chats. So I've met with up to our managing director, which has been great. They have an open door policy, so talking with them has been really wonderful. These initiatives and resource groups I've talked about, I think that's been really great to help keep the culture alive. And despite the work being not exactly what I was hoping to do when I joined the firm, it is a really good growth opportunity to be really involved in something and manage something that you're not comfortable with. So I definitely feel like I'm gaining a lot of skills. Unsure how far I'll use telecom, dictionary, and processes outside of this project, but it's just been great to learn new stuff and be challenged every day.
Are you usually on one project at a time, or do you ever have multiple projects?
Sure, that's a great question. So typically you are on one client project at a time. Client delivery as a consulting firm, right, is our first and foremost priority. So the engagements, though, how long they last is really different from project to project and even practice. So for example, I kind of mentioned there's this merger and acquisitions team. Their projects are like 4 weeks long. I'm on a year-long project. And this has been going for almost 2 years before me, and will probably go another year or two after I roll off, if I decide to roll off in a year. So it is pretty project dependent. The telecom ones, because they are the most robust and the largest in terms of money the practice receives, they are the longest. So one at a time. Yep.
Cool. So then what was your path to West Monroe Partners, and how did you end up there?
Sure. So really unconventional. Most of my teammates have either come right out of college and from some kind of electrical engineering, mostly engineering practice, and kind of have stayed. So I think that also speaks to the testament of their culture. But how I came there was I was working in Milwaukee as an environmental educator. I was doing that for 3 years, and that role was really about bringing teens and kids to our local county parks as an outdoor classroom. And I think one of the most eye-opening experiences during that time was seeing how little interaction some students had with Lake Michigan, which was only a mile away. It was their first time seeing it, or just really being outside and like being a kid. So I was really interested in environmental advocacy and environmental policy and environmental justice. And so I thought when I went to Harris, I would like totally come out of a role, go back into the nonprofit world. But I took a class with Kim Wolski, who's in EPIC. I believe it's called, what was it called? Energy Policy and Human Behavior. I'm pretty sure that was it. And that was really interesting. I hadn't really considered energy policy before. I thought it was mostly telecom, which it is sometimes. And I just thought that class was fascinating. It really talked about how households can be this huge change in consumption, and how utilities can be a huge catalyst in that. And I thought that would be kind of an interesting field to explore. And so I talked to a few alumni who worked or had worked at West Monroe beforehand, and they just talked about how interesting it was, what a great culture it was, and that, it is heavy on telecom, but there were, you're not always on a telecom or utility-based project. You can be on the EV stuff, like I mentioned, or we have a big decarbonization effort growing. So I thought that was really interesting, and I thought I'd, apply and see where that took me. And within a month and a half, I had a job offer. So I'm glad I took that.
Awesome. So then let's talk a little bit more about your time at Harris. So let's go back to that. So let's see, we already touched on how you got to West Monroe. So were you involved in anything at Harris or outside of Harris, at least your time at UChicago, that helped add to your skill set or your interest in energy and environment and advocacy and stuff like that?
Sure. So I was involved with the Harris Energy and Environmental Association, or HEA. And so that was cool to just kind of learn more about what other people had done in terms of their career paths, what interests they had, and helping to plan events. I know we didn't get as much as we wanted done my second year due to the pandemic, but And just hearing about class offerings, like I heard about energy law and policy through HIA members, and that was the best class I took probably during my time at Harris, even though it's in the law school. It was just such a great foundational course of what energy policy and regulation is, and it was extremely beneficial to working at West Monroe. I'm trying to think. I did go to EPIC events when I could. I always thought those, if they aligned, were really interesting. Yeah. What else? Gosh, Harris seems so long ago now. But I think it was just, finding people that you aligned interests with and kind of, networking with them and doing your due diligence and kind of figuring out what's available where you wanted to go. But outside of studying, I don't know if there's too much time other, but.
That's fair. That's fair. So you already mentioned the Kim Wolski course and environmental law course. Were there any other courses that were your favorite that you suggest that people take? Any examples beyond those? You don't have to.
Sure. I think program evaluation with Professor Burlig, that had an energy focus, and I thought that was super fascinating too. So really good skills. Finally, like I put my R skills to work for once, even though I don't use it now. But I thought that was a good course, and it was like the problem sets did have energy policy issues. So it's really interesting to kind of help problem solve areas of interest. I'm trying to think. I know at least when I was at Harris, a lot of the classes were a bit more like nuclear policy, or there's some gas policy. Oh, the water policy class. That was really interesting. I'm trying to remember the professor's name, but I thought that was a really good overview of just water policy. It was more international focused, but it was still really interesting. And then this isn't energy or environmental policy related, but I thought Management Matters was a great course, especially if you're thinking about consulting. So.
Awesome. Did you have a mentor or advisor or anyone that you worked with while you were at Harris? Anyone who helped you get to where you were? I know you had mentioned that you talked to a couple people who already worked at West Monroe before you applied. So any examples of those?
Sure. Harris does have a mentor program, and my mentor, although not directly related to West Monroe, she knew of people who had worked there. The former CEO was a board member of the nonprofit that she was the director for. So that was really helpful just to hear outside of the consulting role that West Monroe was like a well-respectable firm, and that people didn't, in the nonprofit environmental space, that there wasn't, I don't know, like this weird private sector, nonprofit sector division. So that was great. I'm trying to think of who else. Not that I can think of. I mean, mentor-wise, Kim Wolski was great. I was an RA for her, and so just really helpful to bounce ideas off of her and kind of learn about the industry more through her.
Great. Now, Emily was a DRW and Bartlett Fellow with EPIC. I'm going to put the links to those in the chat so you guys can explore those a little bit more. So I want to talk a little bit about your experience with that and who you worked with and what you worked on. And we can talk a little bit more about that.
Sorry about that. Okay, so for the Bartlett Fellowship, that was for my summer internship, which was at the Environmental Law and Policy Center, which is a wonderful nonprofit in Chicago that focuses on environmental advocacy and really big environmental policy issues related to stuff in the Midwest region. And I know there's a Harris alumni working there right now too. So I did that, and that was a really interesting position. I helped to coordinate and manage the air quality program that they have in the summertime, where all of the undergrad interns and myself went out and walked around the city of Chicago and measured air quality. And it was super fascinating to be on the data collection side of things rather than the data analysis side of things, coming from, the core of the first year of Harris. And so that was pretty enjoyable and just a really great experience to learn what was going on in the city, also Illinois policy and politics and greater Midwest. So that was Bartlett. And then the other one, the DRW or DWR, I always get that messed up, I'm sorry, was with Kim Walski. And so that was during the academic year and actually into the summertime until I started my role. It was really lucky that they had the funds to continue on, which was great because my start date got pushed back from due to the pandemic. And so I helped do a massive literature review for her paper that focused on what are kind of like the major trends we're seeing in consumer, what would be the right word, like consumer consumption of different like energy efficient things. So like, are EVs better perceived among consumers, or is like, making your home more green better? And so kind of just seeing what the behavioral science was and like how that could help with policies in the future. I think it's still ongoing too, but it was a really kind of great way to really immerse myself in energy policy before starting at West Monroe.
Great. Any of those skills that you got from either of those fellowships help you in your position today? And it's totally fine if they don't.
I mean, I think just being well versed to speaking about what's happening in the industry is always really important. So just getting that exposure to kind of what's happening at a regulatory and policy level, but also at a consumer level, seeing as utilities are kind of the middleman. So that was, I think, really helpful skill-wise. We did have a massive Excel document to store all of our literature reviews. So kind of to play around with that was a little bit helpful because consulting is extremely Excel heavy. So yeah.
Okay, and then did you do any other internships during your undergrad or graduate school that you want to talk about?
No, I think those two are the big ones.
All right, then we'll move on a little bit to talk about, what you see yourself doing in the future. How do you envision West Monroe in your career path, and what is your dream job? Oh, you're on mute.
Mute again. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm really, we haven't been virtual for, I don't know, a year. It's fine. 5 years. So I foresee myself at West Monroe for the next 5 years. That's partially due to their vesting, but also because I do think it is like a great place to be and kind of start my career off. I think, this project is going to take me to this time next year, and then hopefully I'll be on maybe a more EV or sustainable focused project that more aligns with my interests. But I think there's just such a great growth opportunity at West Monroe, and they really do want to see you succeed. And they, part of that is the professional development they offer. We have to take 40 hours of professional development credit. So I do think that it's a great firm to be at, and I'm happy to stay for 5 years, but internally there is like another motivation to stay for 5 years. I think at that 5-year point, it's going to be kind of dependent on what projects I've been on, what skills I have. If I think there's still more that I can get from West Monroe in terms of just industry experience or skill-wise, what level I'm at. But I think at that point, it's also, a possibility that I may venture back into the nonprofit world. My true passion is environmental advocacy and justice. So maybe perhaps looking at nonprofits here and elsewhere that focus on that and where I can bring some of my experience over to.
All right. And then, so, you were just in the job hunting position. Some of the students on this webinar might be thinking about getting there soon or graduating this spring. Do you have any advice for students who are, thinking about their futures or starting that process now? And I know it's a whole different world now with COVID, but any specific advice for applying for jobs during the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel very fortunate. I got my offer in December, so I did not have to experience job searching virtually. But I would say, hated this when I was applying, but networking is so important. If you can speak to someone at the company that you're interested in, just like having it be an informal coffee chat, like asking about what their day-to-day is, their role, if there's someone that they suggest that you can speak with. And the best way to get your foot in the door is to start with alumni or anyone within the UChicago network. People are, I found in my experience, really willing to speak with alumni. So that was always really helpful. And then leverage your own network too. I had a lot of great conversations with people that, were a friend of a friend of a friend. So that was really helpful as well. Like I was meeting with, since I did air quality, I was really interested, like, oh, maybe we want to put it to like environmental health and policy after that summer. And I was meeting with someone within Chicago's public health department when they got the first COVID case in Chicago. So that was crazy to be there that day. But, it's just really interesting, and you never know where those relationships go. But also to keep them going is really important, just scheduling a month or 3-month follow-up too, because you're probably not going to be in the same career forever. So it's really important to maintain those connections. And then within the firm too, we're really encouraged to network and have coffee chats with as many people as we can. The LA office is kind of getting the more like, I don't know, sexier projects, for lack of a better word, the EV stuff, because it's California, right? They're super ahead of the game. So, I have a good contact there, and he's like, yeah, if we see any cool EV projects, we'll send them, I'll keep you apprised. So it's always good to just network in and without your organization.
All right. And before we jump into student questions, I just want to go back a minute. You talked about how you're required to do professional development, which is really great. Can you talk a little bit more about what that entails, and what can you choose anything that you want to focus on, or how is it dictated for you?
Yeah, great question. So, like I said, we are required to have 40 hours of professional development credits, and West Monroe offers a ton of opportunity internally to meet those credits. You could also go outside and take those credits as well. So any trainings that I have at my utility, like we had FERC regulatory trainings, those could count towards it. Unfortunately, your standard like onboarding trainings don't count, but there is a exploring bias training that's all day that I will be a part of. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to. We also have skill-based training. So I'm trying to think, what were they called? Like exquisite design, right? West Monroe is really big into PowerPoints. And so there are different like trajectories and series that you can take in visual design, any kind of stuff like that. We also have what are called milestone trainings. And so at each level, there is a 2-day training that focuses on 1 to 2, 3 major topics that helps you get those credits. But then, like I mentioned really early on, I'm helping to lead a training on the model that I helped work on. So there's a ton of those trainings going on. There was one last Friday that was solely on electrical metering, like the actual infrastructure, like what you see outside your apartment or house. And so that was really fascinating. I had no idea like what goes into those meters. So yeah, it can be nitty gritty, it can be overarching, it can be skill based or company goal based. So they definitely provide all those for you, but I'm thinking honestly of taking an Excel course later this spring. So that would count too.
Awesome. That sounds really cool. All right, so let's open the floor up to student questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, use the raise hand function. I'll unmute you, and then you'll be asked to accept the unmute. I'll let you speak. Please do say your name, and if you're a student, what program are you in and what year, and then we'll let you ask your question. So, the floor is open. While while you guys decide on what you want to ask, I don't want to leave a bunch of dead space. So I'm gonna ask a couple other questions still, and then once we have some hands raised, we'll get to those questions too. So you might have touched on this, but this is always an important question that I want to ask. And what is it that made you want to go back to graduate school? What happened that made that decision come out? It's a big decision, and I know some people on this call might either be still an undergrad or in grad. So just let me know.
Sure. So, oh man, I really hemmed and hawed about going back to grad school. I really liked my job as an environmental educator. It was very, very fun, right? Like taking kids sledding and using that to teach them about physics, taking kids canoeing to talk about aquatic ecology. Like it was a dream job for sure. But there wasn't, that was the role, and that would be the role as long as I wanted to stay there. And so I knew I wanted something a little bit more challenging in the long run, and wouldn't always be an educator. And the nonprofit really didn't have any room for advancement, which is, it's not, not a diss on them, but that's just the structure. And kind of like I mentioned before, like seeing kids see Lake Michigan for the first time, despite it being a mile away, was just really eye-opening. Like, wow, I have had all these great experiences with nature. How can we get this, to be more equitable? And you did see a lot of environmental, educational, and economic policy come into play. Majority of my students were Milwaukee public school students. And so that was really the catalyst for going back to school, at least specifically policy school. And I did think about an MBA, but I was like, that's not really what I want to be doing. And then I thought, well, maybe if I did environmental science, but it was a tough decision. But I think the primary driver was kind of what I was seeing in my day-to-day at my job, and just kind of knowing where I wanted to make a difference or what I wanted to focus on. If you're an undergrad, I really recommend taking a year just to like figure out what you want to do. I think it really helps make a more informative decision. But I mean, if you go straight into policy school or any other degree program, that's great too. I just think, at least for me personally, it was really helpful to have a few years outside of school working and figuring out what I wanted to do. Had I gone into school from undergrad, I would have been in an anthropology PhD program. So just like so drastic what a few years can do. But no shade if you're going into it, you do you. But I think for me personally, it was helpful to have a year or two outside.
Great, and we do have a question. So Samuel Morin, I'm gonna unmute you, and then you can ask us your question.
All right, great. I had to step away for a minute, so hopefully you didn't already answer this question. But how has your time working just over the past few months in this consulting role changed your prospective career trajectory in the future? Do you see yourself long term doing this kind of thing, or could you see yourself maybe working for one of the subsidiary companies that you're sort of working with on a more regular basis?
Great question. Thanks. So no, I don't see myself going to a utility. I think, again, they're really great. They're super important. They are kind of what keeps our, communities going. But it's just personally not for me. I think eventually, long term, I'd like to go back to a job more focused in the policy sphere, just because I do have a degree in that. But there are people who do come from industry to consulting, and consultants who do go to industry. That's really common. I think, actually, I shouldn't say that. If there are opportunities for any kind of like policy opportunity within a utility, I would not like turn my nose down at that. But I think if I like going into more of like a management like consulting role at a utility, I just don't foresee happening. I think I'll be at West Monroe for at least 5 years, maybe 6+, just kind of depending on what kind of projects I'm working on, what the firm is doing. I mean, it's a great company, so I don't foresee leaving anytime sooner. And then I also think, I am still super interested in environmental advocacy and environmental justice. And I think there might be a lot more opportunities career-wise opening up within the next few years, just based on the political climate. So that's probably a terrible answer, a big TBD, but I shouldn't have said no so quickly. I'm thinking, primarily telecom, but I think there are opportunities within the utilities to work on policy issues, especially energy, like upcoming green energy policies.
All right, thanks, Daniel, for that question. If you have any follow-ups, you can always raise your hand. And this, actually, I just thought of this, something we hadn't discussed already, is what office are you supposed to be going into? And do you think you'll end up ever going into an office?
Yeah, great question. So I'm supposed to be in the Chicago office. It currently is open if you are comfortable going in. So they have a sign-up sheet. You have to, fill it out a few days in advance. They're really, really strict on how many people are in the building. I think that's really just because they had a brand new building open up in June. So they're trying to get some use out of it. I do hope to go in one day. I think once I'm vaccinated, I'm comfortable going in, assuming we have good health and security measures in place. I think that's probably realistically like fall, but it's so up in there with that. I think consulting is a firm that's been really, an industry really changed by the pandemic, right? We used to be flying out Monday through Thursday every week for our clients. And I think clients are realizing we can get the work done remotely. They don't need us there every day, FaceTime. So we'll see how that changes too. I'm really, really curious to see how that's going to change. So stay tuned. I'll let you all know.
Yeah, all right. We do have a question from Caleb, so I'm gonna let you talk. And if you could let us know what program or year you're in, that'd be great.
Hi there. I'm a second year at second year MPP. I had 2 questions. The first is, what level of flexibility did you have in picking your project? Like, did you feel like this, work with the power in New Jersey was like your first pick out of, several options, or were you kind of like, this is the thing you were going to do when you started? And the second thing is, are you getting any sense of whether that Monday through Thursday thing is going to continue after the, the pandemic ends, from leadership?
Sure, great questions. Thanks, Caleb. So in terms of flexibility, I actually had 2 projects that were kind of offered. One, they're both telecom. One was a very short project. It was going to be 3 months, and it was helping with a private LTE line for the utility private communications, right? They have their own line in case everything else shuts down. And then the current one that I'm on. And I chose the one that I'm on just because it was a larger team. It would have just been myself and a manager, and because it was a longer duration. And I just thought, with the pandemic and kind of the uncertainty of what's going on in the world, it would be nicer to be committed to a longer term project, just for, not job stability or safety, but I just thought that was kind of the smarter thing. I didn't want to be on the bench again. So if you miss this, on the bench is what we called when you're not staffed, and you're generally just helping out with internal initiatives and other things going on. You can even be helping out with other practices, but I just wanted to keep my utilization up. So utilization in the consulting world, you do have to meet a specific number of client hours a year. And so I thought a larger project would help with that too. And then, but I think generally that is something the firm is aware of, and that they're trying to make that process more transparent, and trying to help tailor projects more to people's interests and skills and goals. So I do think that's something the firm is actively working on, but it's just tough too. When you roll off a project, it's kind of like what is available, and knowing in the back of your mind that you do need to meet those hours. So, and then the Monday through Thursday. So that's a great question. That's something that I'm wondering and asking about too. I think, Utility companies are deemed essential. My clients are still on job sites. We will not be going back until our client tells us otherwise. And I think they'll probably be one of the last clients within West Monroe to kind of say, okay, please come back to our offices. So I think more realistically, what we'll see is we'll need to be there for major meetings. So kickoff meetings, milestones, big status reports. And I don't think we'll be seeing as much of employees from Los Angeles flying to the East Coast or vice versa. I think it might stay more regional, but that's a little bit tough because the headquarters of those utilities are usually in the East Coast. But we'll see. I do think it will be more remote and more work from home, or more work in the office than what the consulting industry is used to, which isn't a bad thing, right? We reduce greenhouse emissions. I'm for it. So
Yeah, I guess all you lose is the travel bonus. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, looks like Samuel has another question, so we'll open that back up to you.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the company in general. What's your and you haven't really been going to the office, so I don't know if you can tell, but what's the growth of the firm been like? How has their expansion been going over the last 5 or so years? And does it seem like the consulting firm is sort of in a good place and headed in the right direction?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Samuel. So the growth of the firm has been great. In the last 5 years, they bought a new building here in Chicago. They wanted the headcount to go up to 800. I can't attest to what it is right now, but they are growing. We have had a bunch of new hires actually this month. So that's a really good indication of the health of West Monroe right now. We've hired EV managers for out west. We've hired more managers for our New York office. So that's really exciting to see, kind of more specialized focus and kind of predicting on where the industry is heading and where we will be needing to help our clients. We had a really great last Q3 and Q4, sorry, consulting speak, practice industry speak, Q3, Q4. And so that's been really great. I think, it was rough at the start of the pandemic. Clients put a lot of brakes on, but we have really gained a lot of momentum and steam, and our overall numbers are looking really great. And the energy and utilities practice specifically has really, really carried big numbers. So I think clients are still realizing that they do need consultants even in a crisis. So that's been great. Did that answer your question? Do you have any follow-up on that?
No, that was good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Okay. Still ask questions. Go ahead. Otherwise, Emily and I are just going to keep chatting. So
I do see some in the question and answer. Do you mind if
I haven't. I'm sorry, I didn't have that.
No, that's okay.
Space closed. Let's do that. Yeah.
Great. So Samuel, to answer your question about utility markets, I've only worked with regulated, so I can't speak to that question too much. Yeah, we are definitely regulated by FERC. Our budget is, operation and materials and cap. And so we have to be really careful on where that spend is. But to deregulated, I can't speak to that too much. Happy to talk offline though, if you have more questions as well. Okay, someone asked, what are the pros and cons of working amongst colleagues with a strong electrical engineering background? As someone who has a background in environmental policy, let's see, do you feel that you have ample opportunities to present your viewpoint during meetings? Yeah, great question. So I'll do the part one, pros and cons. It's been a really great learning experience. I would say the pro of learning how to kind of break down really technical topics and processes and break them down and rephrase them into words that I understand, but also help to show the client and these engineers that I am picking up what they're putting down. So that's been a really good challenge. But some days it is kind of like banging your head into the wall of, I just don't understand like what this GRE tunnel means and what I need to do to help further that process along. But that's come along with time too, is, stuff that didn't make sense a month ago is finally clicking. It's like, oh yeah, that's a super pivotal part of the project that I need to talk to this person and this person to get rolling. So it takes time. The first few months I really was in onboarding. So they just want you to be a sponge and sit in as much as you can and listen as much as you can. And so now that I'm actually in charge of the utility, it's making way more sense to kind of help keep the pieces in place. But yeah, great opportunity to learn a different industry, different, topic that I never thought I'd look into. So that's been really great. And it's I can kind of guess what fiber is on a telephone line now. So, that's a fun party fact. So, and then the second question is, do you feel that you have ample opportunities to present your viewpoint during meetings? Yeah, so that's a really great question. I think I would answer this in two different ways. So the first one would be client-based is, you have to cater to the client, right? I'm in the process of trying to get this really big stakeholder meeting down efficiently. And it's been going well, right? But, it's for the stakeholders, and sometimes the client's like, hey, can you do this or do this? And it's like, well, okay, I can. And it's just being flexible. So sometimes I try to add in what I can, but unfortunately there's not too much policy talk. It's really on, are we meeting our deadlines and getting these communication devices in the field? On the flip side, West Monroe side, there are definitely opportunities to kind of present my viewpoints. So I helped write a piece on what water utilities are facing with the COVID crisis, specifically their low income customers. So what have and they have not been doing. What does the water utility landscape look like for low income customers? I mean, it's just astounding how much water costs these days, and what programs exist and don't exist. So definitely looking inside the firm for opportunities. And one of our directors actually worked in policy for the New York government. So that's been really interesting to chat with him and just hear more about his experience and how that's shaping West Monroe. But yeah, unfortunately not utilizing my degree a whole lot in this project, but I'm definitely looking for opportunities within the firm to make sure that I'm keeping up to date and focusing on what I'm interested in. So I hope that answered your question. Feel free to respond back. Mike, thank you for asking. You said, what advice would you give to someone looking to pursue a similar career path? Do you mean consulting? I'll go with a yes. Okay, yes. Cool, great. Consulting, so yeah, I had no experience. During my interviews and cover letter, really tried to shape my experience and how that was related to consulting. So while I had no work in utilities or telecom or energy policy related jobs, I tried to frame, working with students and teachers every day was client interfacing every day, like changing our programs last minute to meet the client need of the teacher, or, problem solving stuff with that, logistical challenges, this class can't go, how do we solve this? So trying to frame as much as I could as a client facing interaction. Being a teacher, you had to communicate to a variety of different people and kind of, honing in that I had good communication skills, and anything that I could try to relate to project management, and kind of being flexible and adaptable, just trying to pick up what skills I thought would be really valuable to the firm. So prior to teaching, I was an wilderness leader. So I led teams on extended expeditions. And so using that as a really good project management, problem solving experience too. So, and my best advice too is just to really, really research the firm and highlight what they're looking for, and putting that into your own cover letter and your answers, but making it sure it's you're answering with their values in mind, if that makes sense. Oh, the question disappeared. I was going to look back at it. Did that answer it, Mike? Oh, it's under answered. Okay, well, let me check back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and network, I know I said that, and I know it's so annoying to hear, but it's really helpful to just speak to people in the company that you're interested in, hearing everyone's perspective and learning how they got there. So the more you know, it's always helpful. Well, great question. Thank you.
And Emily, are you interested in if anyone has any additional questions after this, or wants to learn more about West Monroe Partners, of being available for responding to emails or anything like that?
Yeah, happy to. I don't have a UChicago email anymore, but I can put it in the chat really quickly on my personal
that'd be
one.
great.
I try to check it, but let's see. Great, so I've put that in there. Feel free to ping me, add me on LinkedIn, follow me on social media. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, happy to answer any and all questions.
Sorry,
Awesome.
where did you put the email? I think the chat is disabled.
Oh, you sent it to all panelists. Can you just change it to all panelists and attendees?
Oh, yeah, for sure. 1 second. Let me get that out there. Great. Great. Any last questions? I know we have about 5 minutes left.
Just a few minutes left. So if you have any questions, please do raise your hand, put it in the Q&A. Do we have one in the Q&A? Oh, yep, we do.
Okay.
Last one.
Great. In what ways do you or will you use your degree in your current work as it relates to energy and environmental policy? Great question. So this is something that I struggled with the first few months. Like, I feel like I'm not using the content of my degree. But I think it was really helpful to reframe my thinking and like have a different perspective. I'm using the skills, the critical thinking skills from the degree. So not using R per se, but when we do have these big Excel models, like what can I take from like statistics and economics and thinking about like, okay, I want this answer, how do I get it? In terms of what other, I think like grad school gives you really great critical thinking skills and project management skills, like time skills, right? So kind of more qualitative skills. I do think though, the content has come in handy for energy policy, just when speaking with directors or other people in the practice that are doing the projects that I'm interested in, and being able to show that I do have experience in this. I can speak to what's going on has been helpful as well. So yeah, trying to reframe my mindset, even though maybe I'm not using exactly what I learned in program evaluation or what's another one, like for law cases. It is helpful knowledge to have and keeps me more well informed and be able to just speak to the team.
Great. We only have a few minutes left, so if there are no other questions, we will wrap up. I will give you just a few more seconds if anyone wants to raise their hand or submit something in the Q&A. Otherwise, I'm gonna get us going. Thank you, Emily, so much for joining us today. This was really great and enlightening to learn about all that you're working on and how consulting has changed and all of that stuff. Oh, we do have one more question, Caleb. Okay.
Just a quick one. I heard that West Monroe has unlimited vacation days. Have you been able to take advantage of that at all?
They do. Yes, good pointing that out. So I have and haven't. So unlimited is kind of this like double-edged sword, right? It's like, how many is unlimited, right? And so previous to that policy or firm platform, it was about 4 weeks people got, which is really big in the consulting world. I know friends who went to Accenture only got like 12. So I had 2 weeks off at Christmas. We do basically what's the phrase for it? What is it? Sorry, I can't think of it. What the term is when we basically shut down from Christmas to New Year's Day, our clients aren't in the office, so we basically do a slow shutdown too. That's not it, but it'll come back to me. So 2 weeks off was wonderful, and that's pretty much the norm as well. But people do take it. Like people on my team have taken 2 weeks, in January. They had that time booked for vacation pre-pandemic, and they just decided to use it. You can take up to 3 weeks without having to request it. So they are really flexible with PTO. You just have to make sure everything on your end will be accounted for. I haven't taken off much this quarter just because I'm starting a new project, and I just want to keep my head down and get this really to more like steady state where I feel comfortable taking time off, and not putting extra workload on my project manager to, run the meetings while I'm gone. But I definitely anticipate taking time off in March. I'm gonna go help my dad tap maple trees for maple sap, for maple sugar. So, and then definitely in the summer, I want to take a lot of time off and just, enjoy nature and stuff. So yeah, they do. It's really wonderful. And it's actually, people do take advantage of it. So.
That's
Thanks.
super great.
Yeah. It's not a myth. It's real.
Oh, awesome. I actually used to work for a fully remote tech company that was unlimited vacation, and then people abused it and they took it away. So yeah, don't do that. Okay, thank you guys for joining us. Again, thank you for Emily. Her email is in the chat box, and if for some reason you didn't grab that, you can always email me and we can get that to you. We do have another career series event coming up in March on the 3rd. That's with David Foote. He's at LS Power. So I'm going to pop our schedule into the chat box and you can check that out. But that's it for today. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully see you next month.